California Congresswoman Katie Porter's 2026 gubernatorial campaign hit turbulence this week after two videos surfaced showing the progressive Democrat losing her temper. First, she berated a CBS reporter for asking about Trump voters. Then, in a 2021 clip obtained by Politico, screaming at her staff to get out of my fucking shot during an online discussion. Porter, who's been leading polls in the race to replace term-limited Gavin Newsom's, the term-limited person that was appointed by Gavin Newsom, responded by acknowledging she holds herself and staff to high standards, while Democratic opponents piled on, with former controller Betty Yee calling her to drop out entirely. Sorry, I said that wrong. Obviously, to replace Gavin Newsom is what I meant. So this is a good little tape, and I want to try find it and play it for you. I thought I had it queued up, but I have to find it. But have you been following Katie? I mean, I enjoy her she was a great congressperson. She really did a good job for Orange County. She's the one with the whiteboard. You always had the whiteboard.
Yeah, she has the whiteboard. She has the Betty Boop haircut. She looks like a traditional wife from like the 40s, 50s. Wears the big belt dresses. That's Katie Porter. Very smart lady. But
great communicator.
But listen, Ellie Leonard, who, by the way, the unpaid Substack writer, everybody should follow Ellie. Ellie Leonard just said something. Who'd have thought assholery applies across party lines? I mean, listen, this is one of those things that makes everybody go, oh, we have a problem with mainstreamism. We have a problem with extremists. We have a problem with assholes that represent both sides of the equation. In the middle, if you do the Venn diagram of where we're at as a society, and I believe this to be true, you've got the left, you got the right, and you got the center. The center's massive. The center's all of us. Some of us lean a little more conservative. Some of us lean a little more liberal. But on the extremes, there are what I like to refer to as, some people may take an issue with my language, dumb assholes. Now, Katie Porter might not be dumb, but she's an asshole.
No,
she is an asshole. No. The way I watched her talk to that reporter the other day from CBS, the way that how I watched her scream and yell at her staff, that's something an asshole does. And if you look at it on the right, you hear the same stories coming from people like Donald J. Trump. That's what an asshole does. You treat people like shit. Now, what'll happen is Katie Porter had I almost called her Katy Perry. She looks nothing like Katy Perry. Katie Porter has just given, because this is what MAGA does, this is what the right does better than the left, has given the assholes on the right absolute fuel, and assholes on the left fuel, to completely excommunicate her from the rest of her career.
Yeah.
And that is the problem with assholes. Assholes misrepresent the whole. Listen, I thought Katie Porter was brilliant. Do you know how many whiteboard sessions I saw in oversight committee hearings where she absolutely decimated someone and showed someone how to do it? I'm not taking away from how technical she is. I'm not taking away from her intentions. But yet people on this planet, specifically in North America, specifically in California and the United States of America, they have just had it with assholes.
Totally. I mean, look, this is a tough job, Governor of California. You want to be able to communicate effectively. You don't want your staff to hate you. You don't want people to see you lose it at various points. Let's listen to one of these tapes. This is the one from Politico. I think you can play it. Is it playing?
I don't hear it.
It should be. Can you hear it now? Oh, there you go.
Oh, yeah, and everybody here, you can still love Katie. Yeah, I do too.
632, which is how much you save in fuel and maintenance costs when you replace your traditional car with an EV, with an electric vehicle. So I lease a Chevy Bolt. It is the best car that I have ever owned. I just plug it into the garage, 3-hole prong plug, and
Just taking a cold
to the
here.
gas station.
That's awesome. And $632 is real money. And I know here at UCI, we have a National Fuel Center Research Center, and they're also doing work on how to make electric vehicles affordable, including for low and moderate income people, working moms, single moms like me, people who really could benefit from an extra $632 in their pocket. And it's also not just the individual savings, but it's also the total savings for our economy.
I was going to say, I'm learning a lot, though.
I know.
Who knew?
I did a study recently this fall in September, and what it showed is if we don't electrified our transportation sector.
She's going to lose it here soon? Or?
I think so. I think she's about to lose it. I hope so.
Prematurely to air pollution and other problems.
There you go. Someone's walking in behind her.
Get out of my fucking shot.
I mean, who hasn't said that? Who hasn't said that in television? You've never said, get out of my fucking shot?
Never screamed, get out of my fucking shot, or we're going to do it live.
I've thought it. I've thought it. I've thought about it. I've thought those words before. But I've never actually said them out loud.
Listen, Katie Porter might be really bright, but she's got a fucking character issue, right? Like that is a character test, right? When someone walks behind you, you're delivering information, and you get so fucking amped up that someone walked behind you that you destroy the entire thing to have an emotional outburst that you can't control. Californians are not going to vote for her. And it just kind of proves what I said before, right? I mean, Katie Porter is an asshole. And listen, I like what she does. I like how educational she is. She's got lots of great qualities. But when it really matters in a tense moment like that, and I want to point something out. Okay. As someone who really tries to follow Stoic philosophy, control what you can control, emotional negative outbursts never help. Anger is like one of the worst things you can display in a moment where it's really important to stay calm, stay cool, stay collected. I tell my kids this. I brought my boys up with this adage of the calmest person in the room wins every time. And if you're not the calmest person in the room, dude, you can sit back, you can watch, you can assess, you can figure it out. And when it really matters, when the chips are down and there's an emotional situation like that, that's when you find out the content of someone's character, right? That was a character test that Katie Porter failed. And she failed that character test because she, like all the assholes on the right and all the assholes on the left, they can't control their emotions. They get all agitated because someone challenged them. They act like victims. That was a victim moment for Katie Porter. Katie Porter is not a victim. She could have just kept going. She could have just kept delivering the content. She could have just said, hey, no worries, great to see you, and had a laugh with the person and got right back to it. But that's the sign of someone who is emotionally not well.
It's also someone who's a bully, obviously. I mean, you can't have people yelling and screaming at people like that on this staff.
Correct.
I mean, she's bullying them, and it's unnecessary. It's not like, get out of my fucking shot. It's just not what happened. It wasn't worth the outburst. But I still like her, and I'm sorry to see her gubernatorial efforts fail here. I hope it doesn't knock her out of the race. I hope she doesn't lose. I hope she remains the leader in this race because I think she's a great representative she was a great representative for Orange County. She was so well-spoken, a good communicator. She was able to take the right message to people. And I really appreciate that she understood what it was to be a common person.
Yeah.
She knows what it's like to be a teacher, a single mother, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, maybe she's a bit stressed.
I think we saw why.
Yeah, but in her defense, being a single mom.
Can you imagine being married to her and creeping in on the sink to go and brush your teeth and get a little bit of water, and then she's trying to spit and you're just trying to get a little water to make your toothbrush wet, and you're like, she's get the fuck out of my sink.
Yeah,
like that.
It would be a little hard.
Listen, there are so many fucking people out there that are on edge, and I appreciate all the people here that are. No, I'm not being chauvinistic. I swear to God, I'm talking like any woman that's married to a dude. I would say the exact same thing. Is that there are people on this planet that have no emotional governor, and that is a major character flaw for a lot of different people. And I would encourage Katie Porter to go and get some counseling to go and figure out what makes her stop a super important press conference she's having, explaining the importance of EVs, to turn around and tell one of her employees to, quote, get the fuck out of my shot at the top of her lunch. Because people are so tired of that. They're so tired of meanness. They're so tired of anger. They're so tired of unhinged. And
there was also not her character at all. Like, we've all known her as being the nicest person around. And now she's like,
I thought she was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder what people at home are thinking. If you guys are, what have they been saying in the chat? Are they sympathetic or People like to see her go.
I think a lot of people, depending on the binary nature of their thinking, we've got a very smart audience.
Yeah.
I think they're all basically in agreement that, this is just more unhinged behavior. This is the sign of someone that's got something going on that needs to be addressed, because that's really what it is. Listen, anytime it'll take you down a little bit of a philosophical road and an emotional road and a mental acuity road. When you're in a moment where you're angry, something angers you, and that anger manifests itself in a way that damages your reputation, your mood, the environment around you, where you're not in control, right? We live in a world where we're watching that manifest itself in the United States government right now, right? We're watching unhinged rants, unhinged rallies. We're watching, meanness rue the day. We're watching anger rue the day. And there's this idea on the left, and I hope that this makes sense to people. There's this idea on the left that the left is this purity, circle of people who've never done anything wrong. And that's not the case. People are people. People are damaged on every end of the spectrum, right? And so when you're choosing a leader at this point, watching leadership do what it does in the United States of America, there's this undercurrent of, I cannot submit myself or my agency, and especially the people in California watching Governor Gavin Newsom just continually hit those right notes, show anger and frustration in really constructive ways, be funny about it, whether or not you agree with his trolling. I happen to fucking dig it, but he's always in control. People want leadership that is in control of their emotions because that calms fears. Katie Porter just showed everybody she's not in control of her emotions. That scares people in 2025.
Yeah, look, she's front page news on all the newspapers today, so that is a good thing for her. There's no such thing as bad publicity in this world, and she's on the front pages. Maybe some people will think this is her way of being strong and think it's and applaud her. Most people, I think, are going to be on your side of
and you know what? There's some people that are weighing in that are talking about that. Is that maybe Katie Porter? I haven't seen it. I mean, her kind of apology was not really an apology. It was like, hey, I expect the best from my people. In a vulnerable moment, if Katie Porter came out and said, hey, listen, I'm dealing with some stuff and I apologize.
But is it because she's a woman? Are you sure it's not because she's a woman?
No, I could care less. No, doesn't matter.
Because if a guy did that, you wouldn't think that as much, would you?
100% I'd say the exact same thing about that individual. Yeah. I don't care about what's between your legs. I don't care about what's on your driver's license. What I care about is that, we're going to have an honest conversation about the problem that people have with Katie Porter, talk about the good things that Katie Porter is, but also talk about why situations like that, like she's now encountering, are self-inflicted. And those things that are self-inflicted, for every human being that goes through an emotional fucking moment like that, a really negative experience where they're not in control, they act out, they swear and scream at people that are on their team, that's a sign of someone that just isn't well. I don't care if she's a woman. I don't care who you are. And I would say the same thing about every other unhinged rant that someone goes on where they treat another human being. This is the problem I have with the entirety of the Trump administration. This is the problem I have with the entirety of MAGA, Maple MAGA, is that their strategy is to treat human beings with discontent, disdain, to be mean, to threaten them. Katie Porter just fucking threatened someone that she's trying to win the race with by saying, get the fuck out of my shot. She just treated that human being with disdain. Yeah. And I have a problem with that no matter who you are.
Can I tell you a story? There I was in the White House. We were doing an interview with Barack Obama. Done the interview with Barack Obama, and he had finished his thing. He was terrific in the interview, and afterwards, we were all standing around, a bunch of us were just talking about what we're going to do with it and all that. And he comes back in from outside. And, the president was a tall gentleman. You would not ignore him. You would certainly be aware that he walked back into the room. And he put his head underneath a light in order to just eavesdrop into the conversation we were having about when we were going to run this little clip. And the crew freaked out because they were worried that he was going to burn his hair. Because he was really close to the light. So they're trying to wave at me to tell him to move away. So I say, Mr. President, we're just concerned that you might, burn your hair if you stay under that light for too long. And he snapped at me in the most unbelievable way possible. And I'd known him a couple of times, so it certainly was unusual
What
for
did
him.
he say? What did he say?
He said, "Oh, I can see the light, Zev. When are you going to run this damn thing?" And I was like, okay. Chill out, dude. I guess you want me to run it sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
And I said, we'll run it today. No problem. If you really want it there. And it was important. It was timely. It made sense. No, that was all fine. But, most of the time I had ever encountered Obama, he was the most wonderful guy around, super charming, super lovely. On this particular occasion, he snapped. Now, his team said, don't even worry about it. It actually means he likes you, because he wouldn't do that in front of you if he didn't like you. And I was like, well, that's interesting perspective. But
it's a weird way to like me.
But he is the guy who did exactly the same thing that Porter did over there, and probably did it often to his staff, according to his staff.
So I would ask then, what is wrong with Barack Obama? Like, I would ask, what is bothering Barack Obama? Why does he have to treat people like shit? And I would have the same opinion. Right? Like I can recognize Katie Porter, and everybody has a bad day. I get it. Totally get it. But the receipts that I've seen as we're talking about this one individual would dictate that she's had a few bad days recently. And I would encourage her to go and figure out why those bad days keep compounding and what makes her continually treat people like shit.
Fair enough. I'm going to stop that topic. Let's move to number 4. Israel and Hamas signed the first phase of a ceasefire deal Thursday that would halt fighting in Gaza and see the release of all remaining hostages in exchange for 250 Palestinian prisoners serving life sentences and some 1,700 Gaza detainees. Trump announced the deal last night, claimed credit, and said he'll travel to Egypt early next week for a formal signing ceremony, with hostages expected to be released Monday or Tuesday, though thorny issues like Hamas's disarmament and full Israeli troop withdrawal have been kicked down the road as per usual. So there's lots of celebrations in Israel for the so-called deal, although it's really unclear what they've achieved here. They basically have a prisoner swap, but they don't have anything much more than that.
I'll get to some of the parts of the deal, which is interesting. And then we'll talk about Donald Trump being in the middle of it, because this is his big wet dream. Temporary halt to all military operations going into effect within 24 hours of the Israeli government's ratification of the deal, which happened today. As of today, they were still firing in Gaza and still dropping bombs, still shooting people. So, whether or not they observe it, who knows? Senior Hamas officials said they've received guarantees from the United States mediators that the war will permanently end. Good news, right? Pretty good news.
Yeah, they have no choice, but yes.
Right. Israel has not confirmed that publicly at all. So, you got the deal maker making deals with everybody else. What Donald Trump likes to do is make one deal with somebody else, make another deal with somebody else, and then get those people together and then try and figure out a way to convince each person that he's lied to, that there's got to be a deal here somewhere. You got to figure it out. Hostage and prisoner exchange, to your point, they're going to release all remaining Israeli hostages, including, unfortunately, 28 deceased hostages. 20 are still alive, which will be incredible. And we'll get to that in a minute. In exchange, Israel's going to release, and this seems a little lopsided, 250 Palestinian prisoners serving life sentence, 1,700 Gazans detained since October 7th. Israel will make an initial partial withdrawal to about 30% of what they currently occupy, from what I understand. And a significant increase in humanitarian aid is expected to enter Gaza, including food, fuel, medical supplies. The Rafah crossing with Egypt will apparently reopen. Now, here are the next steps, which is interesting.
Have they agreed on that 30%? Has that actually been signed into?
That's just what the deal is. Now, listen, I'm just reading you what's being reported.
Okay.
But this, in no way, shape, or form, because Trump is involved and Netanyahu's involved and a terrorist entity named Hamas is involved. There's no way to certify if any of these things are accurate, any of these things are true, or if it's just a collection of everybody's wishes for this thing to end and how it ends. Next steps, political obstacles, long-term governance of Gaza. That hasn't been figured out yet because, Hamas still wants Gaza. Israel's like, no, Trump's like, no, the rest of the world's like, no, disarmament of Hamas. That was a key demand by Israel. Complete withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza. That has not been agreed to yet. The role of the international force in post-war Gaza, that has not been decided yet. And, of course, the ultimate fate of Hamas, which, if you know anything about Hamas, and if you watched October 7th, unfortunately, we just went through the anniversary of it. They're a terrorist entity that needs to be wiped off the face of the fucking planet.
No doubt.
Hopefully that's part of the deal. The political landscape's kind of interesting. The deal faces opposition from far-right members who want Gaza. So Ben Giver, that entire group of people that are part of that hardline version or the extreme part of the Likud party, they're like, we hate this deal. And here's why we hate this deal, because we want all of Gaza. We want to get rid of every Palestinian. We don't give a fuck if they're Hamas. And that has been the hard right's MO this entire time. The announcement's been met with cautious optimism. Obviously, we're all cautiously optimistic because we'd all like to see the humanitarian disaster in that part of the world end. But the agreement was welcomed by basically every country in the world who all of us, and I mean all of us, would like to see this end. And Trump's put himself in the middle of it. He's claiming victory like he was the guy that did it. And I'll tell you what, threatening to absolutely level the rest of Gaza and every person in it, including Hamas, if they don't agree to do what he asked by Sunday with the American military machine behind him. But it's a pretty good playing card for a guy like Donald Trump.
I mean, I think he had an important role to play, and it's impossible to deny that. However, this has been a forced game from the very beginning. I mean, I'm so glad this war is coming to an end. I'm so glad that the people of Israel can resume their normal lives. They've been living in bomb shelters and under terrible conditions. The people of Gaza have been living under horrific conditions. There's been a practical genocide there. What's left of that territory and who will be allowed back is a good question, and what they'll be returning to. Like, what kind of resources will they have to rebuild Gaza? Who will rebuild Gaza, and who will be in charge
of Gaza?
Yeah. And I mean, there's no, Hamas will obviously not be there, but whoever does take over from Hamas is not going to be as powerful as Gaza. As Hamas. I don't see them giving the next authority as much authority as they gave Hamas to rule over the Gaza Strip. They just don't want to do that again. It's too much of a risk for them. So we shall see what happens. On the other hand, this is amazing news. I mean, this war should never have really started, if you really think about it. And we don't yet know exactly what happened on October 7th. There's not been a real investigation to determine why those attacks on the Israelis even was allowed to take place, why there was no reaction towards the people who crossed the border. I mean, it was a horrific attack. And, I'm not excusing any of that, but we still don't really understand how it happened, why it happened. And I think there's lots of questions around that deserve to be answered. It's taken way too long for the Israelis to even, get to the point where they can now investigate that. And it's really important that they do. As for this extreme right wing of the Israeli government, it's very disturbing. This is a country that was based out of the Holocaust, it rose out of the Holocaust. And to have these guys who are basically victims, who should be considering themselves victims of the Holocaust or descendants of that, for them to be persecuting other nations in the way that they're doing, for them to be so genocidal in their approach to eliminating the Palestinian nation is appalling. I just don't see how anyone can stand for that. And I hope that Bibi goes. I hope this is Bibi's final thing. It's time for him to go. And something about the timing and the kind of the urgency around the timing is interesting to me. I think that they realized the patience of the American Jews and the American community in general was beginning to wear really thin, and they needed to do something.
Yeah, Western Jewish communities were really starting to turn up the heat on groups, Jewish associations that have connections back in Israel. Because if you talk to any, and I'm fortunate, I've got some massive cross section of friends, some from the Jewish community, some very involved in the Jewish community, and listen, almost all of them believe in a two-state solution. Almost all of them were embarrassed by the misrepresentation of Mr. Netanyahu and Ben Giver and the Likud party and that hard right faction. Almost all of them knew what was going on in Gaza and called it what it was, which was premeditated genocide of innocent individuals. Yes, of course. This started with Hamas brutally invading, killing thousands of Jewish people on October the 7th. Yes, absolutely. They are a terror organization, and every time someone asks about it, I say the same thing, that needs to be demolished forever. In no uncertain terms, period, stop. But even people in Western Jewish communities have started to not just ask questions, but started to push back because of that notion. Because the people of Israel, because the Jewish community, specifically in Europe, was almost wiped out via the same means that you saw so many innocent people in Palestine perish, by being starved to death, by being shot to death, by being bombed in the middle of the night, by being rounded up, put in these little small areas, and then bombed again. And unfortunately, and I talked to one of my friends about this the other day, and I said, do you think they'll ever get that, sterling reputation back? Do you think that we'll ever look at Israel the same again? And a friend of mine, he's big tears in his eyes, and he's like, that's the saddest part outside of all the needless death, is that no, people will look at us out of the corner of their eyes in ways that we only, were told about by our ancestors for the next generation, because of what Mr. Netanyahu has done, and because of what he continues to stand for. So, I applaud it. Listen, and for everybody that's out there going, Donald Trump did this. Yes, he did. But Donald Trump also, flooded from the start of the war. So did Biden. $70 billion in arms to make everything that we've seen possible into Israel, no questions asked. So, and Trump really opened up the floodgates for Israel too. You remember Biden was actually trying to step on the gas pedal, step on the brake, and he's like, "You got to slow this down. I mean, this is too much." And when Trump came in, they put double the aid that Biden put into Israel, and basically just opened up the ammo stores and the bank accounts in America for Netanyahu, so he could continue doing what he's doing. So while he deserves some credit for the ceasefire in what is apparently a Middle East, a ceasefire deal, he also deserves a ton of credit for not just fanning the flames of what we've seen happen and all of the disaster and the misery that we've seen happen in the Middle East, but also funding it and supplying it with weapons over the past 9 months as well.
Yeah, and then of course there's this notion that Bibi and Trump are funded by the same funders, by the same rich billionaire donors, and that tells you that these are not sort of separate entities, that they've been operating as two parts of one whole. The thing that I think has happened in the last few weeks and maybe months is that the mask has come off Israel's activities in the United States. I think people now realize how much of a influence operation they have in the United States, that it's very vast. They have enormous control through AIPAC and other organizations over the politicians that are in Congress and in the White House, and that they're berating of people for criticizing certain positions as one really
if you had a
thing.
problem with any suffering there, you're instantly branded as an anti-Semitic.
Yeah, which is not the case at all, of course. I think that is never going to be restored, as you point out. We're never going to get to the point where we trust Israel in the same way that, previously we trusted Israel. I think at the end of the day, we have to look at them and their operations here with as much skepticism as we do any other country that we are not completely aligned with.
So can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Can I ask you a quick question? You've got family in Israel still? How do they feel about this? Like, are they cautiously optimistic? Are they optimistic? Or they're just so war weary that any good news, whether or not be legitimate, is good news, and they're just kind of hanging their hats on it?
It's very good news. They just want to get out of this war. I mean, the war is horrible. They've been spending so much time in tiny little bomb shelters where there's no room for anybody. There's no toilets or anything down there. They have to, go to the toilet in buckets and stuff like that. Can you imagine so many nights in a row of just doing that kind of stuff every time there's some sort of siren that goes off? Now, it's not so bad right now, but of course, their life has been abruptly changed when October 7th happened, and they've been protesting against Netanyahu a lot. They're part of the thousands of people that show up week after week after week in Tel Aviv to protest against Bibi Netanyahu. There's a vast secular opposition to Bibi Netanyahu, more in the tradition of the American Jewry. And I just hope that they can come back into power and start building the kind of Israel that Israel's always meant to be, which is a democracy that was fair and equal and just, and also a real icon in the Middle East. There was no other democracy in the Middle East, and this is one that could really show everyone that it could work. So I hope they get back to the basics there, and their attempts to control, use America as a puppet needs to stop. I mean, America needs to be able to resist foreign control, no matter where it's coming from, whether it's Russia, China, or Israel. We have to resist it, and we have to be able to protect our own democracy so we can, be a democracy. We can't allow foreign governments to run our politics anymore. We've seen it for way too long now that it doesn't work. It doesn't work, and it hurts Americans.
Yeah, and you know what? So well said. I love the fact that you have such a firsthand connection to Israel, that you are Jewish. You do have family there. They do not like Netanyahu. They celebrate their culture. They want the same thing that everybody wants, which was the end of the genocide in Gaza. They also want to be able to live freely and openly without, having 1,700, crazy Hamas assholes on hang gliders shooting up kibbutzes and concerts and stabbing them in the streets while they wait for the fucking bus. The history there is, and my friend Spencer Rice asked me, he's like, will this ever end? I'm like, well, that's been going on for 2,000 years, so it doesn't feel like it. But the history there deserves some context, and the people there deserve some nuance when we talk about it. Like, we have to talk about this subject with nuance, because Israel isn't bad. Palestinians aren't bad. Hamas and Netanyahu, they're bad. They're bad people that represent the worst of intentions. They're bad people that have no problem murdering at a moment's notice if it keeps them out of trouble, if it fills their pockets, if it gets them what they want. So, good news. I mean, I'm glad there's a ceasefire, and I certainly hope that Israel can take Israel back, just like I hope America can take America back as well.
Which all leads us to the number 3 story. Trump's months-long campaign for a Nobel Peace Prize reaches its climax Friday when the Norwegian Nobel Committee announces this year's winner, a quest that sparked what a Washington Post insider called an unusual global scramble of nominations from Pakistan, Israel, as it turns out, Cambodia, and Taiwan. The 79-year-old president claims he's settled 7 wars and says not winning would be a big insult to our country. Apparently even called Barack Obama to complain that he was not nominated because he wants,
Can you imagine taking that phone call? Can you imagine being Obama and your phone rings at night and it's Donald Trump? He's like, hey, Barack, I can't believe they're not nominating me for fucking...
I mean, it's ludicrous. It's ludicrous, but I believe it. I believe it happened. Anyhow, he's not going to get it. I mean, just to cut to the chase here, he's not going to get the Peace Prize.
Well,
it ain't happening.
You don't militarize the National Guard to attack your own citizens in your own country and then lie about settling 7 wars you indeed had nothing to do with, and tell everybody to do a letter writing campaign on your behalf, because the one thing you want to put on your fucking mantle is the Nobel Peace Prize. Listen, to the point where I read today that the Nobel Committee quietly just removed all of the letters of commendation and applications for Donald Trump, to the point where they not only did they not take any of these assholes that sent letters of commendation seriously on his behalf, but they just took a look around and went on Twitter and were like, oh, well, he's shooting priests in the head with pepper pellets. We probably can't give this guy the fucking Nobel Peace Prize.
Probably not, but they also wanted to let him down. So I think slowly. So they did that by removing the recommendations. So at least he'd know and wasn't expecting a win tomorrow. But he's going to be in a lousy mood tomorrow morning. It'll be interesting to see when he wakes up and finds out who the winner of the Peace Prize is.
I can't wait to find out tomorrow morning. Yeah. I can't wait for that first Truth Social post. It's going to be good morning. Congratulations to the Nobel Peace Prize winner who has not settled 7 wars, who has who does not who has not changed the economy, but guaranteed they won't impeach that guy because he doesn't have the Biden crime family. I mean, dude, it's going to be one of the greatest true social tweets of all time.
Yeah. So tune in tomorrow morning for that. It's happening. Now, the number 2 story is a very serious one. The Trump administration is seriously discussing using the Insurrection Act to send active duty troops into American cities for domestic law enforcement. It's part of a deliberate 2-week buildup. First came a memo called NSPM 7 that told the DOJ, Homeland Security, Treasury, and even the IRS to go after what the White House has called organized political violence. Then on Wednesday, they staged a wild White House event where officials compared American protesters to Hamas and ISIS. This was on deanvandel.substack.com. I couldn't believe they did that. What's all this about?
Well, it's about the ongoing attempt to pretend that the United States of America is a hotbed of criminal leftist activity. It is another attempt to treat American cities, specifically blue cities like Portland, Oregon, Chicago, Illinois, LA, as these crime-ridden, apocalyptic, burning to the ground cities. In no way, shape, or form is any of that true.
Nothing.
And yesterday was the piece de resistance, right? And I'm going to walk you through it real quick. Everything Donald Trump does, everything he's doing, everything he's engineering is a set. It's not a riot. It's not a protest. It's a set. And what he's doing is he's staging this set. And the reason why he's staging this set is, and I'll attach 2 different aspects to this. NSPM 7, which is National Security Presidential Memorandum number 7, which says that everybody who's anti-Christian, anti-capitalist, anti-American is considered a fucking terrorist, and they're going to go to jail. So there's that. That was like 2 weeks ago. He's built this little scaffold to tyranny in less than 2-3 weeks. And then on top of it, he's continually talking about how the country's burning to the ground, and it's a whole bunch of crazy blue hair, armpit-haired leftists that are running around killing people. None of that shit's true. If you've seen anything from Portland with the dancing chickens and the people in Halloween outfits,
so
I mean, the war zone is a party. And people are mocking it at this point.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, they're still shooting people with pepper pellets, including a priest who showed up and was just standing there praying. They just boom, shot him in the head with a pepper pellet. And yesterday was the chef's kiss of this psychological operation. They went into the East Wing, and I'm going to do roll call here. And when I say they, to hold a press conference to talk about how dangerous Antifa was, which requires the Insurrection Act to be triggered. That was the point of this. It's all the lead up. NSPM 7 gives them access to the Insurrection Act. And then all of a sudden, boom, everybody's running from the police, and the military is chasing you down the street. That's what he wants. He wants to create martial law in the United States. So they hold this Antifa press conference where Kristi Noem sat up there going, guys, I hate to tell you this, but we've captured the founder's girlfriend of Antifa.
All right.
And we're going to prosecute her. She didn't tell her what she did wrong. We're going to prosecute her, and we're going to get information from her. Park that for a second. Kash Patel, we're going to go after Antifa with the full government support. It's a whole of government effort. And if you donated to any one of these organizations, we're going to fucking crush you. Yeah. And then they had expert opinion from Andy No, Jack Posobiec,
oh my God, really?
And Nick Sartor going, we fear for our lives. It's getting really bad. The leftists are crazy. They're all a bunch of trans-loving like psychos that are shooting people. Help us, Donald Trump, help us. And then there was Donald Trump, who sat in this room, and all the sycophants were there. Sat in this room, he's like, and treated it like it was a pep rally. I don't know. Should I start going after people at the No Kings protest? Shouldn't I? What do you guys think? And everybody's like, yay, go after the people again. All right, martial law it is. That was the most unhinged, unserious theater of the fucking absurd I have seen to date. And the reason why is because nothing they said yesterday was based in fact, merit, or anything tangible that you can point to. And the other thing is the founder of Antifa died. It was an Italian dude that was part of the Italian resistance when Mussolini came to power in 1922. Some
He must have had a very young
some
girlfriend.
some
He's still
dude
around.
named Franco Passini or something like
Yeah.
that. He's been dead since 1948. So if they have his girlfriend, she's a sprightly 145 years old, and she's still in the anti-fascist game. It's incredible.
What we're seeing is the air come out of the Trump presidency, and I mean, I'm very careful about assessing it like that, but I think we're beginning to see the whole thing fall apart. Whether it's the Epstein files, which is going to come out, and that great Swalwell tweet that came out yesterday, which is an indicator.
Did you see that?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. There is no one wants to be defending the Epstein, human trafficking, organized crime efforts that they're currently doing by suppressing the release of the FBI files. No one wants anything to do with that, especially if you're a Republican. We don't want to be anything. You would rather be on the other side of the world than be anywhere near that particular issue. So
yeah, you're labeled a pedophile protector for the rest of your life, and you're losing your gig.
It's a political suicide. It's just not something you want to do. So then you've got that. You've got the generals last week who basically told him, fuck off. We're not doing this. We're not playing your game. We're going to stare at you silently, and we're not going to accept your decision to send our troops to turn on Americans. Now you've got these court decisions, which have been quite, this is the number one story. 2 federal courtrooms held simultaneous hearings today on Trump's deployment of the National Guard troops to Chicago and Portland over the objections of state and local officials in what legal experts call a political watershed moment for presidential power and the use of military force in the U.S. soil. In Chicago, Judge April Perry pressed Trump administration lawyers to define limits on the limited mission of protecting federal property, noting, I'm very much struggling to figure out where this would stop. While in Portland, the Ninth Circuit heard arguments over whether courts could even review the president's deployment decisions or if they must defer completely. Now, there are obviously National Guard troops staged in Chicago and in Portland. But what's interesting is the Portland National Guard, the Oregon National Guard, has come out and said they are defending the protesters and their right to protest. And they're not going to do anything else. So you are setting up a situation in which you get the other National Guard coming in or the military coming in any form, that they'll be in conflict with the National Guard of Oregon. That is not a sustainable model. That is a civil war on the grounds of on that state. And there's nothing really going on to justify all of this. So you've got all of these things, and you just get the sense, or at least I get the sense, that the Trump administration is beginning to just fall apart. It's run out of steam. It doesn't have what it needs to have this authoritarian state. It hasn't created the pretext that it needs to establish this tyranny that they've been planning. So they're going out there and doing all this bullshit, this performative bullshit, but it's not catching anyone because it looks ridiculous. It looks like they're living in another
it's
planet.
So easily disprovable.
Yeah.
That Antifa press conference yesterday, I literally, not because I know this is a very serious moment for the United States of America. Yeah. But as a reflex, I literally laughed out loud watching that press conference with Kristi Noem, Kash Patel, Donald Trump, and a whole bunch of other fucking losers like Jack Posobiec. I'm afraid for my life. I laughed out loud because none of it is based in reality. None of it is provable. It is all a lie. It is all a pretext. And I don't know if you've ever seen those old movies where like a boat's sinking, right? Or a plane's carrying too much weight. And they're like, we got to get the seats out of the plane, or we got to get all the dishes and the luggage out of this boat, or we're going to sink. Like, he's down to his last fucking, chest full of doubloons, or he's down to his last cargo pack to throw out of the sinking ship or the crashing plane at this point. And that's what yesterday's Antifa press conference was. If I could just put it into an analogy that everybody easily understands, because Eric Swalwell's tweet yesterday, which by the way, went mega viral. I put it out. I'm like, hey, anybody see this? Because it went really unnoticed. And Rick Wilson at Lincoln Square was kind enough to put it out. A bunch of other people were kind enough to glom onto it because they realized that there's there. Yep. Eric Swalwell said, and I'm paraphrasing, it's going to be over soon, guys. The GOP knows that the Epstein files are coming out. When they come out, over 100 GOP members, hardcore MAGAs, are going to do one thing and one thing only, which is protect themselves, because not one of those people wants to be associated with protecting a pedophilic president. Not one of those people wants to be associated with protecting a pedophile sex trafficking ring. And so if you combine that with this bailing out, this last-ditch effort, Portland's one of them, Chicago's another one, quadrupling troops to Portland when they shouldn't be there in the first place, appeals, sending Stephen Miller out to talk about Trump's plenary authority, tariffs, hitting people with bigger tariffs, press conferences with guys like Mark Carney, who ran his show the other day in the Oval Office, by the way. All of these things are him bailing out, him trying to throw as much shit against the wall as he can, because, my friends, to Lev's point, he knows it's coming. And if you want to take one thing with you for the rest of the day, I know we talk doom and gloom. I know we talk about the theatrics, but the severity of them, because this dickhead has a way, this uncanny way of turning theatrics and gaslighting into policy to hurt people. We're watching him do it in Chicago. We watched him do it in LA. We're watching him try to do it in Portland, Oregon. He's doing it in Memphis. He's doing it in Colorado. He's doing it in New York. So just understand that we understand the severity of it. But you also have to understand that this is a desperate fucking fool who's trying so hard to do something that all despots do when they know they're in trouble. When they realize that the cards they're holding are the same ones we know they're holding, not the ones they're telling us they have, that's when they get angry. That's when they get mean. That's when they hold press conferences talking about how Kristi Noem fantastically arrested the founder of Antifa's girlfriend, and they're going to go after Antifa and start arresting the trans community, because all cruelty springs from weakness. They know they're weak, and they know that it's coming.
And you know why this is happening? It's happening because Americans have been incredibly watchful over the real truth. I mean, I can't tell you how impressive it is to see all the people who join us here on Substack every day, and across all our platforms, but also just, it's been going on for now 8 years since I started reporting on this. The Americans have really focused on getting the truth, because the truth ultimately does set you free. And in this kind of situation, it really does set you free. And it's because of that focus on the truth that these guys have not been able to get away with their bullshit. This is how they've not been able to get away with their lies. And that's why everything is coming off them right now. Yeah. I don't know what happens once they go away. I don't know whether it's a Vance thing or whether we just have to reset everything. There are many theories out there of how this could happen. But it seems to me that once these Epstein files come out, he's got nowhere to run.
No, especially if, 100 of his sycophants decide that they need to turn tail and save their job, save their ass, save their reputation, because they don't want to be known as a bunch of people that just, thought it'd be really cool to keep their job as opposed to protect the victims of a decades-long sex trafficking pedophile ring, right? Like that's really what it comes down to. Like, you might call it a profiling courage, and that moment will be interesting, but there's no profiling courage because these people have been hiding for the past 9 months.
Well, it's also a conspiracy, right? I mean, they're currently committing a crime. There's a conspiracy to obstruct justice by not actually letting these files come out. They could be up for a criminal conspiracy charge. No one wants that, especially not to protect a pedophile ring, which is, been trafficking young girls for decades. It's just not.
Did you see him yesterday in the Antifa press conference?
I didn't see that.
Oh my God, he looks so sick. Like, he looks so low energy. He's like, okay, it's your turn. You talk. I want to hear from you. And at one point, he started to fall asleep again.
Yeah.
But, I don't know, 30 minutes into it, he started falling asleep. And I want everybody to kind of keep an eye out for something. There's a little fun little, like, it could be a drinking game, if you like. When his mouth starts to stroke out, he starts doing this one.
Yeah.
He's doing that more and more and more. And it looks like he's getting ready to be like a drooly old guy.
Oh,
right? Because he can't stop falling asleep. The bag's under his eyes. He looks absolutely terrible. And to your point, it's not just because he's 80 and he's got congestive heart failure. It's because he knows what's coming. It's because this guy has been trying to put out fires where it comes to the Epstein files and his ongoing criminal fucking conduct as the president of the United States, the self-dealing, the enrichment. He's been going for fucking totalitarian broke for the last 9 months, whether it's the $10 billion that he's enriched himself with, or Qatari jets, or instituting martial law in cities, or his Bitcoin scams, or the covering up of the Epstein files, or the covering up Tom Homan's $50,000 cash bag, or the gaslighting of America, or I mean, fuck, take your pick.
Yeah.
Take your pick. That is a man who is literally starting to see the end of the runway and go, fuck.
Yeah. Now, put into context, the urgency around getting an Israeli peace deal suddenly done, or an Israeli ceasefire done, in the context of, oh shit, I'm running out of runway. Or calling up Barack Obama and saying, how do you know about that Nobel Peace Prize, when you 2 weeks ago said you wanted him arrested and put into jail for this vast criminal conspiracy. Now you're calling him up to say, hey, about that Nobel Prize. So you put those kind of, they're anecdotal, they don't mean anything on their own, but when you look at that in the context of what's really happening to him and whether his political life has any sustainability, and you can get a good sense that he doesn't believe that it does. So he's going to have this moment next week where he's going to sign his ceasefire deal. But beyond that, I just don't see him winning another victory in front of a court. I just don't see it. And I don't think the generals are giving him any room to maneuver. That's what he really needed. He's not getting it.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Ladies and gentlemen, you just might have a front row seat. He tries to keep up appearances that he's in control, he's in charge, everything's great. But y'all know, because you're here, that is absolutely not true. And it is all starting to kind of collapse in from the outside. So keep your eye on the ball, keep your eye on the puck, make sure you're paying attention to the distractions, make sure you're paying attention to the strategy, make sure you understand what's important today. And what's important is, and Lev said this, and if this is the exercise we all needed to go through, which is to not just take news and go, oh, that's news, and we trust it, but this is the smartest group of people I've ever had the opportunity of broadcasting to, talking to, doing content for, and y'all know it because you're all here. You're all here looking for proper information. You're all here looking for the truth, looking for those receipts. And that's one really serious point of pride that I have when it comes to deanblundell.substack.com, when it comes to the FiveStack or anything that I do with Lev or Michael or you, anybody, is that is the only thing I give a shit about. I don't care about the right. I don't care about the left. I don't care about libs. I don't care about cons. I don't care about your religion. I don't care about that religion. What I care about are facts. I care about the truth. And I care about presenting it to you in a way that you can easily understand so that you can arm yourself on a daily basis, as does my friend Lev. Arm yourself on a daily basis with Zev, with the kind of information to affirm yourself that you're not going nuts, because you're not. We're not going nuts. It takes us some time to feel through this information and put it together. And it means the world to all of us that you guys are here today on the FiveStack with Zev and myself. It means the world to both of us that you subscribe and you share, that you hit that little heart, that you hit that square with the arrow, and you share this with people as well. I think that we're going to see a real tide turning because people are a lot smarter than I think Donald Trump gives them credit for. And I think that, what is going to save America is the same thing that's going to save everybody else that's in a jam. Educating yourself, finding the truth, hanging on to that truth and sharing that truth, and not allowing disinformation and misinformation like the bullshit we saw in the East Wing with the Antifa garbage yesterday to become fact, to be presented as settled truth. Because the settled truth is the settled truth. It's not someone's version of the truth. It's not someone's take on what happened. We will give you facts and we'll talk about them and have fun with them. But more importantly, what we endeavor to do here, and what my friend Zev endeavors to do at narrative.org, is to arm you with the proper context so you can understand intention, and so that you can have aha moments like we have on a daily basis, but you don't have to go and dig for it. That's why we exist. So subscribe, share. Never been more important to do so. And thank you all for being here on the FiveStack today. It means the world to both of us.
Well said. That is the end of the show. Thank you for being here. We'll be back tomorrow with another FiveStack. Everyone, check out deanblundell.substack.com. Everything he's saying is 100% true. He's a real believer in the truth, as am I, at narrative.org, NARATIV.org. Check them both out, and we'll see you tomorrow on the FiveStack.
Bye, guys.